Tonight, after mounting pressure, Ottawa says it is ready to crack down on violent criminals with tougher sentences and making bail harder to get.
These changes will keep violent, repeat offenders of these crimes off our streets.
Reaction to the new legislation, many say, is long overdue.
If the system had done what it was supposed to do, Darien would be alive today.
And the pushback from critics.
We're stuck in a cycle of making policy by soundbite.
Plus, Mark Carney meets with Doug Ford as cracks emerge in the Team Canada approach to trade.
We are not a united front anymore.
At Issue will be here to unpack the politics behind it. And how safe are protein powders?
There are a couple that had really concerning levels of lead.
A new report looks at what is in some leading brands and what it could mean for your health.
From CBC News, this is The National with Chief Correspondent Adrienne Arsenault.
Thanks for joining us. Tougher bail, tougher sentences, and more RCMP officers. The federal government is laying out its plans to crack down on violent and repeat offenders, promising to table new legislation within days. Mark Carney has been under pressure to make changes from both the opposition and the public. The new rules target repeat and violent offenders accused of crimes like home invasions, extortion, and sexual assault. This is an intensely emotional issue, especially for those personally affected by violent crime. We'll bring you their stories in a minute, but first, Olivia Stefanovich walks us through the government's plan and the politics of it all.
Under pressure to fix the bail system, the Prime Minister announced his government's long-awaited plan.
With so-called reverse onus bail, it will no longer be up to the Crown to prove why someone should stay behind bars. It will be up to the accused to prove to the court why they can be trusted to be released.
The Liberals also want to hire 1,000 more Mounties and allow for consecutive sentencing for offenders accused of serious crimes, including violent auto theft, human trafficking, and sexual assault.
Simply put, these changes will keep violent, repeat offenders of these crimes off our streets and out of our communities.
We are going to scrap liberal bail, scrap liberal parole.
Pierre Poilievre has been pushing for bail reform for years. He's dismissing Mark Carney's proposed changes, urging him to pass a Conservative private member's bill on bail reform instead.
Canadian people deserve to live in safety and security.
According to Statistics Canada, crime is declining across the country. But in Vote-rich 905 surrounding Toronto, where the Conservatives upset the Liberals in the last federal election, there is a spike in violent crime, some caused by repeat offenders.
There's too many judges that are just bleeding hearts that, oh, we got to give them a second chance. No, these are troublemakers.
It's unclear if the bill could withstand a legal challenge. The Supreme Court of Canada has previously struck down consecutive periods of parole ineligibility. Carney says he'll follow the courts.
We can tighten up our system and make sure that people who get bail are not violating that privilege, and we have to tighten that up. But I think we have to do it in a way that's constitutional and conforms with, I think, Canadians' expectations of a fair justice system.
In an attempt to address the over-incarceration of Black and Indigenous offenders, the previous Liberal government made getting bail less onerous. And now these changes are becoming the latest Trudeau-era policy to be put on the chopping block.
So this is interesting, Olivia. These are federal moves, but it's the provinces that are responsible for the administration of justice. So how is that being handled?
Well, Adrienne, the provinces and territories have a major role to play here, and that's why the federal justice minister, Sean Fraser, he sat down with his provincial and territorial counterparts in Alberta today to discuss this federal plan. The way bail works is different in every part of the country, and so is the funding. So if people are staying in detention longer, that's going to cost millions.
Indeed. All right, Olivia Stefanovich in Ottawa, thank you.
You're welcome.
So crime is clearly a political issue, but for so many Canadians, it's also deeply, painfully personal. Lisa Shing gets reaction tonight from some of them and from critics who say this move may not be the answer.
That was at Christmas.
Flo Bellman and her husband Paul Henderson are left with just memories.
I see her walking back. That was it.
The last we saw of her.
5 years ago, their daughter Darian was shot dead, allegedly by her ex-boyfriend while out on bail, now charged with first-degree murder. They applaud the Liberals' promise to make bail harder to get and bring in tougher sentencing.
If the system had done what it was supposed to do, Darian would be alive today. She would still be with us.
Riz Arshad's son Gabriel has been in a coma, critically injured in a car crash in July, allegedly caused by an impaired driver also out on bail with 5 previous impaired driving convictions.
I can't tell you the amount of suffering my son has gone through since that day right till this present moment. And these people are being released to potentially hurt somebody else.
Their stories and other high-profile incidents have reinforced calls for a crackdown. A 3-month-old baby and his grandparents killed in a crash. The other driver going the wrong way on a major Ontario highway under a court order not to drive. And in this dramatic shootout in downtown Toronto, 2 of the people charged were out on bail. Still, no one officially tracks how many people are committing crimes while awaiting trial.
Without that information, we're stuck in a cycle of making policy by soundbite or anecdote rather than evidence.
And critics say these measures won't address the root causes of crime.
Allocating resources to social services to assist these individuals will make all of us safer.
But for these parents, a change that can save even one life is meaningful. Lisa Shing, CBC News, Toronto.
Prime Minister Mark Carney is facing pressure tonight to change course on tariffs. This comes in the wake of auto giant Stellantis' decision to move some manufacturing south of the border. Ashley Burke now on the cracks forming in Carney's united front on trade and what it means for the ongoing talks with Washington.
The Prime Minister pushing back against Ontario's Premier, calling on him to get tougher on Donald Trump.
There's times to hit back and there's times to talk, and right now is the time to talk.
Mark Carney and Doug Ford met privately after the White House celebrated a win. Stellantis announced it's moving Canadian Jeep production to the U.S.
We will not send a grain of critical minerals down there as long as we're under constant attack by President Trump.
But Carney is ruling out retaliation.
We're engaged in deep negotiations, intensive negotiations on several sectors.
The Prime Minister says he told Stellantis how disappointed he is and got assurances in return.
They're looking at different model being produced in Brampton. That decision would be taken in the context of the finalization of the USMCA.
Carney's trying to protect the auto industry as premiers sensitive to their workers, voters, and industries demand Ottawa fight harder to get them tariff relief.
That same concern, that same sense of emergency is shared for the forest sector in this country.
A call from Western premiers to accept China's offer to drop tariffs on Canadian canola products if the Prime Minister scraps tariffs on China's EVs is causing more strife.
I do tend to side a little bit more with Wab Kinew and with Scott Moe when it comes to our approach with China.
There's no damn way we should drop tariffs on China, I'll tell you that.
We are not a united front anymore.
This international trade lawyer says those cracks in Team Canada could hurt talks in the U.S. and China.
You can't say no credibly to a given request by the other side because you'll get domestic pressure.
The Foreign Affairs Minister is now in China trying to improve relations. Carney won't say if he will drop the EV tariff. Ashley Burke, CBC News, Ottawa.
So the politics are complicated and the stakes couldn't be higher. Rosie and the At Issue panel will dig into those Team Canada tensions coming up in about 20 minutes. To the U.S. now, where a federal grand jury has indicted Donald Trump's former national security advisor, John Bolton, now the 3rd prominent Trump critic to face federal charges in recent weeks. Paul Hunter joins us now from Washington. So, Paul, can you break down these charges for us?
Yeah, look, these are serious allegations with serious potential consequences for John Bolton. And to any who might think this is Donald Trump simply going after someone he doesn't like, on its face, this doesn't appear to be that. Yes, Donald Trump has no time for John Bolton. Bolton was a senior advisor to Trump back in his first term, but then became a big-time critic of the president. But this investigation was going on during the Biden years, continuing as Trump moved back into the White House in January. Prosecutors say Bolton used his own email, AOL no less, to send what Bolton calls diary notes of his time working under Trump to two people believed to be his wife and daughter, as Bolton was working toward a tell-all book about the Trump White House. The notes are said to have included top secret information and were in turn scooped up by hackers linked to the government of Iran. So as I say, the allegations are quite serious.
And I gather, Paul, that John Bolton has responded tonight. What's he saying?
He has. His lawyer says a lot of this was investigated and resolved years ago without charges being laid, and that the FBI was made aware of the hack at the time. But prosecutors now say the FBI was not told the hack included classified information or that he'd been sharing it on his personal email. Bolton himself tonight calls it retribution from Trump and likens the president to Joseph Stalin's head of secret police, and that from Trump, says Bolton, it's an intensive effort to intimidate his opponents, and he calls it an abuse of power.
And how is Donald Trump taking that?
Well, Trump was asked about all of this today in the Oval Office. Here's some of his answer.
I think he's, a bad person. I think he's a bad guy. Yeah, he's a bad guy. It's too bad, but that's the way it goes.
All in, Adrian, it will certainly make for an intensely watched legal process.
That it will. Paul Hunter in Washington. Thank you. And there's a new push from Donald Trump to end the war in Ukraine. That includes a plan for another in-person meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin.
I'll be meeting with President Putin, and we'll make a determination tomorrow. I would say within 2 weeks or so, pretty quick.
Trump says the summit will be in Hungary. He announced it after a 2-hour phone call with Putin, which he described as productive. Trump is also set to meet with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky at the White House tomorrow. The U.S. president has ramped up his threats against Hamas over reports of the militant group battling and executing rival armed groups in Gaza.
We're going to find out if they behave. If they behave good, if they don't behave, we'll take care of it.
In a social media post, he said, if Hamas continues to kill people in Gaza, which was not the deal, we will have no choice but to go in and kill them. Hamas violence in Gaza, another potential strain on the peace deal, along with its failure to hand over the bodies of some remaining hostages. Hamas says it needs specialized heavy equipment to get at them. Well, as pressure builds on the ceasefire in Gaza, settler violence in the West Bank against Palestinians continues unabated. Ioana Romiliotis with the Fifth Estate shows us how Israeli settlements, despite violating international law, are still getting support from some Canadian charities.
In the West Bank, a familiar scene plays out. Qadir and Fatima Nawaja say they were sleeping outside on their farm in the Palestinian village of Susia to get some respite from the August heat. They woke to Israeli settlers attacking them.
اعتدوا علي أنا من يوم ما صحيت من النوم بالحجار يعني مش حجار بسيطة بعد احتاج الحجار بالعصي يعني
مش قادر لا أضرب ولا أدافع عن حالي ولا أدافع عن جوز إيدي نازلة تذكرت إنها بنتي نايمة في الغرفة.
The United Nations says settler violence against Palestinians in the West Bank has surged since the Hamas attack of October 7th, 2023.
Here the home of Qadir.
Nasser Nawaja shows us where his relatives were struck. He says attacks are often met with impunity because Israeli soldiers do little, if anything, to stop them.
Nobody help us, nobody save us.
Canada condemns the escalating violence, as well as the expansion of Israeli settlements, including here in Susia, which are considered illegal under international law. Details of filings sent by Canadian charities to the Canada Revenue Agency reveal millions of charitable dollars are supporting settlements and Israeli military personnel, contrary to public policy.
Canada promotes the idea of Palestinian human rights, and Israeli settlements in the occupied territories violate all of these principles.
In one example, we were offered a Canadian tax receipt for donating towards an Israeli settlement, also called Susia, that is near the Nawajas village, even though the funds were solicited by an Israeli entity called the Har Hebron Fund, which Canada sanctioned last year for its role in facilitating settler violence. After we asked to interview the organizations involved, we got an email informing us our donation was taken in error and would be refunded. The charities we reached out to turned down or ignored our requests for interviews. Meanwhile, critics question why Canadians are still getting tax breaks for those donations.
I think most people would be outraged. This is many millions of dollars that could otherwise be benefiting Canadians.
The charities we reached out to did not agree to speak with us. Neither did the Canada Revenue Agency, which turned down our interview request. But we did catch up with the finance minister in Ottawa, and he told us the rules governing charities are clear, and the expectation is that they're followed.
Okay. What about Nawaja's case, though? What's the latest with that?
Well, Israeli police took the footage from the security camera the family had that was actually pointing directly towards where they say the attack took place. But it's been more than 2 months, and when we last reached out to them, they said no charges have been laid.
Okay. All right. Ioana, thank you.
Thank you.
You can watch Funding the Occupation right now on YouTube or tomorrow on CBC Television and GEM at 9 p.m. Edmonton police have found the remains of a boy missing since June the 1st, and a murder charge has been laid. Samuel Bird, age 14 and a member of Paul First Nation, was last seen leaving a friend's house. Police say they found his remains today in a rural area west of the city after getting some new information, then arresting a suspect. A 38-year-old man is charged with second-degree murder, interfering with the body, and 13 other offenses. Samuel's mother, Alana, thanked police and volunteers who kept searching for months. Well, a BC community is on edge tonight after a cafe owned by a prominent Indian celebrity was sprayed with bullets for the third time in just months. Yasmin Renea shows us the latest incident captured on video and why police say the case points to extortion.
It's a sound that's become all too familiar for this community. Video verified by CBC News shows someone shooting multiple bullets at this cafe. It happened just before 4 a.m. Thursday. Staff were inside at the time, but no one was hurt.
And at this point in time, I will say that there are earmarks of extortion, but allow the investigators to do their work and make that ultimate determination.
The same cafe was also shot at twice over the summer. Surrey police say there have been 65 reported extortion-related cases and more than 30 connected shootings so far this year.
We have a daycare right across the street. If this had happened during the day, potentially children could have been shot.
The cafe is owned by famed Indian comedian and TV host Kapil Sharma. Indian media is reporting that people who say they are members of the Bishnoi gang are claiming responsibility for the shooting on social media, but CBC News has not verified those claims. The Bishnoi gang, based in northern India, has been linked to violence, intimidation, and extortion, primarily targeting South Asian businesses across Canada. The federal government listed it as a terrorist entity last month.
I think everybody who lives in Surrey is feeling their safety is threatened, especially if you happen to be of South Asian descent.
On Sunday, a woman was shot while she slept inside this home in what police believe is the first extortion-related injury in the city.
That until it's dealt with, it's going to keep happening.
There has been some progress on the issue of extortion. Earlier this month, 7 men were charged in relation to 3 separate cases, but many in the community are still anxious. Yasmin Ghaneya, CBC News, Surrey, BC.
A marketplace investigation has tracked down the CEO of a now defunct renovation company that left some Canadians out thousands of dollars.
What would you like to tell them?
His response and the pursuit of accountability. Is your protein powder problematic?
We think you should kind of just avoid taking these altogether.
Why some brands may not be safe for consumption. And a 12-year-old discovers not 1, but 2 asteroids.
What I learned is how mysterious space really is.
We're back in 2. goaltender Carter Hart, who was acquitted in a high-profile sex assault trial, is set to join the Vegas Golden Knights. 5 former Hockey Canada players, including Hart, were found not guilty of sexual assault in July. The NHL then reinstated them. Multiple media reports say the Knights signed Hart to a professional tryout agreement. Now, to a continuing investigation into complaints of shoddy work by a reno company. AGM Renovations once used celebrity contractor Mike Holmes to draw in customers until he cut ties. When the company suddenly shut down, Asher Tomlinson and the Marketplace team set out to track down the CEO and ended up overseas.
I was feeling betrayed.
Ramon Guanzon hired AGM Renovations in January to reno his basement. He paid $66,000 up front. The project never got off the ground. And there were other clients who also raised concerns about shoddy work. We told AGM, and they pushed back, saying they did nothing wrong.
A national company under investigation.
Then another CBC report exposed serious electrical problems. Mike Holmes, who had been a part of AGM's branding, cut ties. Soon after, AGM shut down, blaming our coverage, leaving Canadians in the lurch, some even filing lawsuits. Doors locked. We visited AGM's headquarters to find CEO Ivan Atanasov. He wasn't there. Checked out this home listed in corporate documents, too. I'm just wondering if Ivan is home?
No, he doesn't live here.
Social media gave us a lead. He's in Bulgaria, renovating this rural home. We are on our way to Bulgaria. While investigating a few locations linked to the CEO, we're stopped by police twice, had to show our passports. Our security consultant advised a third stop could see us detained, even arrested. So we crossed the border into Romania, and Bulgarian journalist Maria Cherisheva went to Atanasov's home for us.
I'm ringing again.
Okay.
Hello, Ivan Atanasov? Hi, Ivan. There are many people in Canada who are out with thousands of dollars, and they feel quite betrayed. So what would you like to tell them? Because they really want to hear your response. Are you still there?
He didn't say anything more, but for Canadians caught in the fallout, we'll keep pushing for answers. Asha Tomlinson, CBC News, Bucharest, Romania.
For the full Marketplace investigation, you can watch the aftermath of AGM Renovations Friday at 8 p.m., 8:30 in Newfoundland on CBC TV and CBC Gem. A new study has found several popular protein powders contain a concerning amount of lead.
That is building up in your body over time, and that can lead to systemic problems.
What you need to look out for. After the break, Rosie's here with that issue. Hello.
Hey, Adrienne. Tonight, we're going to talk about those tensions in the Team Canada response to U.S. and Chinese tariffs and how Ottawa can manage these competing interests.
There's times to hit back and there's times to talk, and right now is the time to talk.
So how challenging is it for the Prime Minister as he continues those delicate negotiations with Donald Trump? Chantal, Althea, Andrew, join me to talk about that and more.
A new report is raising serious concerns about some popular protein powders and shakes. It shows many of these products contain unsafe levels of lead that could cause long-term health problems. Alison Northcott now with the findings.
Hips back, chest up.
This strength and conditioning coach says a lot of her clients use protein powders.
It is quite often hand in hand with strength-based training, fitness training.
But an investigation by the nonprofit organization Consumer Reports tested 23 protein powders and shakes and found 2/3 contained more lead in a single serving than their food safety experts say is safe to consume in a day, some by more than 10 times.
There are a couple that had really concerning levels of lead, and those our experts say, hey, we think you should kind of just avoid taking these altogether. There are others that we recommend kind of limiting your usage, and others seem fine to take daily, and even one we found no lead in.
If you are regularly
This food safety professor says no amount of lead is safe.
that is building up in your body over time, and that can lead to systemic problems such as in children, neurodevelopmental problems, in adults, cognitive decline, mood disorders, chronic kidney disease, and even reproductive effects.
Plant-based protein powders were among those with the most lead, in part because plants can be contaminated by the soil or air while they're growing. Some companies named in the report pushed back. One brand, Huel, called it alarmist and said its products meet globally recognized food safety standards. Naked Nutrition said its Naked Vegan Mass Gainer has a larger serving size than most protein powders, and the data does not provide an accurate apples-to-apples comparison. Some of the products tested are available for Canadians to purchase online. The Canadian Food Inspection Agency says it's been monitoring lead in protein powder since 2011 and says after its last survey in 2019, Health Canada determined none of the samples posed a health risk.
If you're worried, have a little less.
At the gym, the guidance is moderation. Consumer Reports suggest before buying a protein powder, do some research to find out exactly what's in it. Alison Northcott, CBC News, Montreal.
Time now to break down the news shaping our world. And tonight, Rosie's here with that issue.
At issue tonight, Team Canada tensions. Tariffs imposed by the U.S. and China are causing turmoil, with premiers on opposite sides of how Canada should respond.
I respect what they're doing, but there's no damn way we should drop tariffs on China, I'll tell you that.
While some premiers are calling for support for their industries.
What we're asking for today is that same respect, that same concern, that same sense of emergency is shared for the forest sector.
Increasing the challenge for how Ottawa responds.
There's times to hit back and there's times to talk, and right now is the time to talk.
So are there cracks forming in Team Canada? How challenging are these tensions for the federal government? I'm Rosemary Barton, here to break it all down tonight. Chantal Hébert, Andrew Coyne, Althea Raj. Good to see you all. So this has started to bubble up probably last week, and then this week seems even more apparent as provinces try to, I suppose, rightly defend their own interests and their own trade issues. But it's also happening at the same time as these negotiations continue in Washington. What are you observing, Chantal, in terms of how the Team Canada approach has changed?
Is there still a Team Canada approach? Because over the past few days, we've seen Saskatchewan and Alberta calling for a drop on tariffs on EVs to allow canola to flow to China, while Ontario is saying, no, we need to protect the auto industry. The Premier of BC saying you need to do more, and the Premier of New Brunswick for softwood lumber, and you're paying a lot of attention to auto and not enough to us. I think what you're seeing, and I know this comes out of left field, is maybe the wisdom of Justin Trudeau's approach to the last negotiation, i.e. the creation of a kind of consultative council that brought together unions, various players from around the country, which he did leave behind, but I don't think has been activated by Mark Carney. What did these people accomplish? They kind of got to talk or act as bridges to all these conflicting interests so that Canadian governments were not negotiating with each other. And at this point, that is where this is going.
And I mean, division is probably partly what certainly China is after, and perhaps the United States as well, Andrew.
Yes, I mean, there's a reason China chose canola. It was deliberately designed to prey upon our internal divisions. And I do think there's a danger of kind of jumping to China's tune here. There's no logical reason why tariffs on EVs and tariffs on canola should be linked. It's China that's made that linkage. And if we do follow the logic of that and do what China demands of us, we've no assurance that we'll actually get any permanent peace with China any more than we will with Trump. With both of these people, these countries, these regimes, we're dealing with the issue that after they finished blackmailing us, they may just come back and blackmail us some more. So I think it's probably best if we looked at these things. I know this is hard to say to a politician, and looked at them in isolation. Does it make sense on its own merits to be tariffing EVs, Chinese EVs? It's complicated. If it was just a matter of trying to protect our industry, and if it was just part of that general attempt by the previous government to shoehorn the whole industry into EVs, I'd say no. If you're looking at it through a broader lens of security, where what you're trying to do is to keep China from establishing global dominance in this industry, that's a more complicated question. But simply looking at it as a trade-off of one region for another, I think that really goes down a really bad road for the country as a whole, and particularly for our internal divisions.
I mean, the problem, I guess, Althea, is that premiers do have to defend their industries and look as though they're standing up for their workers and the people in their provinces, and that leads us with them sort of working in opposite directions in some cases.
Absolutely. I mean, that is their job. I think they're also being more vocal about it because the Prime Minister has not taken up the stage. So, there's been a lot of talk from Mr. Carney about the negotiations, but self-imposed deadlines have been missed twice. There have been things that the federal government has negotiated away with nothing back in return, and there is no sense that that there is a really emboldened action coming from the federal government. So they all know that there are negotiations underway as we speak in Washington, and they want to plead their case. And so they're doing so publicly, because at the very least, let's say there is a deal done next week and it's not what they want, they will be able to say, I advocated on your behalf. I think what's more concerning, frankly, is what Canada is willing to trade away for temporary peace. Because we have to Andrew's point, no indication that Donald Trump will keep his word. So if we are willing to trade away, we've seen reports about supply management, for example. I don't want to get into a discussion about supply management, but if we're willing to trade away certain key things, what will be left when we actually want to discuss CUSMA? And those, I think, are the bigger issues here.
Sure. Chantal?
And that was the point about having a bigger tent that included Brian Mulroney and the unions and people who actually speak to diverse interests in this country, to haggle this out here rather than in public. And that is not happening. People are being kept in the dark. It's not the same thing to say we're going to brief premiers at some point on what's happening. But if you want them to be having that negotiation in public, you are going to come with a weaker hand to any negotiation, because they are going to be defending, as they should, their own province's interest. And at this point, Mark Carney is failing to give them a national purpose or sustain the national purpose that was there when he took office.
I do wonder, Andrew, how much sort of the vacuum of information, like the lack of information for the premiers about where the negotiations are at, which might be needed, I don't know, but I do wonder whether that is also contributing to the problem. If they're close to a deal, what's on the table, what is the broader strategy? Maybe that's making things worse not knowing.
Yeah, I mean, I have no problem with the premiers advocating for their province's interests and complaining, if you will, that if they think those interests are being overlooked, as long as they're not trying to negotiate themselves or intrude themselves overly much into the proper jurisdiction of the federal government. But as you and as Chantal have said, if the feds want them to be quieter, they're going to have to give them something to do so. And it may be simply sharing information. It may be something grubbier than that. But they can't just simply order them to shush. And usually it's better when you take people into their confidence, into your confidence, if you want them to be team players.
Althea?
I think one of the things that seems very odd in this round of negotiations is it feels like a sense of panic. And I say this just from the buzz around the Capitol, our capital, Canadian capital. The last time around, in the lead up to CUSMA, We knew what the negotiation strategy was. Well, maybe at the time we didn't realize that the Canadian government wanted to kick the can down the road until the deadline was coming up to deadline point, and Donald Trump would have to agree with what was being discussed. But we knew we were making inroads with American legislators and American businessmen and getting them to lobby on our behalf. That strategy is not working. The Canadian government has set that aside. But what is the new strategy? Because it seems like they themselves keep changing their strategy. Every few weeks, months, they're in a new approach. So that is also what is leading, I think, to confusion with business leaders, with the premiers, with other people whose livelihood depend on what happens next. And there is not much, are we really just going after temporary side deals, or are these going to be permanent side deals that are supposed to stick beyond CUSMA? There needs to be more communication, frankly, because otherwise you'll have more and more people speaking out.
Andrew,
and we have to change the game. We're not going to keep Stellantis, for example, here by throwing subsidies at them, and we're certainly not going to keep them by threatening them with lawsuits. The only way you're going to get investment to locate in a permanent way in the country is if we're such an attractive destination for investment that they'll do so even in the face of whatever Donald Trump throws at them. So we've got to be thinking about a much larger game of how do we make ourselves so attractive as a location for investment that we're not having to basically fight with one arm tied behind our back. We can't fight the Americans on tariffs. We can't fight them on subsidies. We can fight them on overall competitiveness.
I mean, I presumably that's what Mark Carney says he's trying to do as well. Whether it's working or not, I don't know. But last 32, Chantal.
Okay, two things. On the auto industry front, we do have two advantages that no American administration can take away. The dollar is lower, and healthcare. If you're going to negotiate work contracts and invest somewhere, it's a lot less costly to do so in Canada. These have been advantages we've had for decades. As for what the strategy is, I agree with the sense of panic, but I also think that this is a government that is now becoming more political than policy oriented, and what they're trying to get is a win, any win, as soon as possible, and ideally before the budget.
Okay, we're
and it's not necessarily a win. That's the thing.
Something
that's not a loss.
I did say this was about politics and not about policy.
Okay, we're going to stop this conversation, this part of it anyway. We're going to take a look at the Liberals' plans for bail reform they talked about today.
We will bring in tougher sentences for violent and repeat offenders and invest in thousands of frontline officers.
Bail reform is coming next week. Will it be enough to satisfy critics right across the country? That's next. At issue, bail reform. The Liberals are making big changes to Canada's bail system, including tougher sentences for repeat offenders and reversing the onus on bail decisions.
We're fixing ineffective policies from the past and building a stronger, safer future with tough new laws, big new resources, and practical solutions.
While the Conservatives are accusing the Liberals of rehashing previous legislation.
We don't need Mr. Carney to simply repeat more Liberal promises on reverse onus. We need to scrap Liberal bail.
So what's been made of the changes the Liberals are proposing? How do they match up with the many calls for reform? Let's bring everyone back. Chantal, Andrew, and Althea. Althea, I'll start with you. We will see, obviously, the full piece of legislation next week, but these are some key measures the Liberals put forward. How do they align with sort of what the complaints were and what the Conservatives have been asking for?
It's interesting that Mr. Poilievre said that, because he should have just accused them of plagiarism. Reverse onus is actually one of his own MP's bills that is part of the Conservatives' concerted effort to put crime at the top of the public agenda. These are mostly promises that the Liberals had made that, frankly, they lifted from the Conservatives, because the Conservatives were very good at convincing the country, a bit like on the carbon price, that the major issue is a small number of exceptional cases where we have violent repeat offenders who have been let go on bail and have reoffended for a variety of reasons. I don't know that what will be tabled or what we expect to be tabled, what Mr. Carney said today, will really make a dent in the problem, because a lot of it is actually resource driven. We don't have enough crowns. There's not enough room in jails. There's not enough information sharing across the country. A lot of the problems are the fact that you don't have a complete picture of the accused in front of you. So you don't know that they have all these other charges in British Columbia, say, when you're hearing about them in Toronto. So there's a lot of things that the government could bring forward. There's a lot of they could talk about, and Mr. Carney did, to his credit, today when he talked about mental health and addiction services. The Justice Minister is meeting with his provincial counterparts. I'm told that there is not going to be federal dollars attached to that, but maybe there will be, because when you think about it, and I think it's worth saying that and reminding people, we are incarcerating at the moment about 80% of people who are in jail are either awaiting their trial or they are waiting for their bail hearing. And about half of people who have their case heard are actually found to not be guilty. So you can't put everybody in jail. First of all, we don't have the space for all of these people. And we cannot make laws for the exceptions, because so many people are actually innocent.
Chantal.
Okay, so I'm going to do the cynical thing here. If I were thinking that maybe I'm going to be in an election sooner rather than later, and I were a minority government, I would be slowly but surely taking leaves out of the Conservative playbook so that they can't play with it. And on substance, there are so many reasons why this announcement needs sustained policy effort that I'm not sure that I'm going to see, that I have to conclude that it came up very early on a week where there were many other priorities as some kind of a life insurance in case of an election.
Andrew.
Yeah, I mean, this goes back to the last election campaign when both parties actually moved towards each other. They both dropped policies that they thought were losers for them politically. So the Conservatives dropped their opposition to subsidies to the media, and the Liberals adopted basically conservative bail and sentencing policies. As Althea mentioned, in Ontario, something like 80% of the prison population are people who are on remand. They're awaiting trial. They've not been convicted of anything that they've been accused of. That's higher than in the United States. It's 3 times as high as in the UK or France. So we've already done it for murderers. We've done it for sexual offenders. Now I think we're going to do it for like car theft. Are we going to get to 90%? Are we going to get to 90%? At what point do you say, what's happened to the presumption of innocence? I know it's great politics, but it certainly again shows if you thought Mark Carney was going to be the high-minded technocrat who would just do what was right for the country, I think he's showing a very, very long political streak.
Last 20 seconds to you there, Althea.
The government, I don't think this is coming last minute. Like, they have been consulting on this throughout the summer. I'm actually surprised that it took this long for the legislation to be tabled, but I agree that they are trying to squeeze the Conservatives and basically be just as tough, like take away another issue that the Conservatives have. And frankly, it's also kind of a reminder to a lot of the backbench in Mr. Poilievre's caucus that maybe the leader that you have is not the leader that you want for a whole bunch of other reasons that I know we'll talk about in the next block or on the podcast if people are watching on TV.
Look at you. You're doing the throws for me now. That's good. I've trained you well. Okay. Thank you all for that. I appreciate it. And as Althea said, that is it for At Issue on the National. But we will continue the conversation, including some comments made by Pierre Poilievre, calling the RCMP leadership, quote, despicable. So you'll want to catch that, which you can do on YouTube or the At Issue podcast. Now back to Adrienne in Toronto.
Thanks, Rosie. Coming up, a young Ontario astronomer is getting some global recognition.
It really feels really cool that I've discovered new asteroids no one has discovered before.
I bet. How a 12-year-old joined an elite group of stargazers next in our moment. This is Siddharth Patel, an amateur astronomer from London, Ontario, who recently discovered 2 asteroids at just 12 years old. So his findings are winning him international space competitions while earning him some global recognition. And tonight, they make our moment.
I saw a citizen science project that was about discovering asteroids. There were about 18,000 entries, and 160 of them is picked to provisional. 2 of my asteroids got picked in it. It really feels really cool that I've discovered new asteroids no one has discovered before. I was held for a global nomination. It really feels amazing that I can share my knowledge of space with others.
This is my setup.
I love taking photos through my telescopes. When I go to somewhere dark or someplace that has lots of stars, and it really ignites my sense of wonder. I've learned how mysterious space really is. There's so much more to explore. That passion keeps me going, basically.
Come on, how could that enthusiasm not be contagious? On top of everything else he's doing, he says he now wants to write a children's book about the beauty of the dark sky and the importance of limiting light pollution. Good on you. From all of us at The National, I'm Adrienne Arsenault. Thanks for being with us. Take care.